Good evening everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our little cooking demo. We're going to be doing Bulgar wheat, quinoa and barley with baby marrow, but we're going to tell you a little bit more about why in a few minutes when we have a few more people joining us.
And we are cooking with one of my favorite ingredients that I used to cook with when I started cooking off in the first place. It's a little trick to making things easier in the kitchen. Actually, we have a few tricks up our sleeve this evening to show you how to cook a delicious and nutritious meal, especially on a manic Monday, like today. So we're just waiting for a few more people to join in. Hello. And then we will get started and I'll show you what we are cooking with today.
Should we start showing everyone the ingredients at all?
So our Euro ingredient for today are these Knorr stock pots, and this is the ingredient that I mentioned earlier that I used to cook with a lot when I just started cooking in the kitchen. It is packed with flavor, and I actually prefer using the Knorr stock pots instead of a cube, just because I feel like this has a lot more flavor than the cubes do. Obviously, you can also make your veggie stock from scratch, but this is such a great alternative to have in your kitchen. I almost always have these stock pots in my kitchen. Then we are going to cook with 3 different grains today. It is a whole grain day, and our grains of choice are quinoa, millet, and Bulgar wheat. But obviously you can cook with the grains.
Made a small mistake. Leah really likes millet, so she said millet instead of barley.
Well, what I was about to say is that you can cook with any whole grains that you have in your kitchen, including things like millet and brown rice.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us, we want to tell everyone, is that grains are not just a side. You know, we grew up eating rice as a side, and that's the grain that most of us think of if we think of grains that we're going to eat for dinner. But the World Health Organization is very clear about how much grains we should be eating, specifically whole grains, and 3 portions a day. So we want to try and be eating those in every meal, and that's quite difficult if we're only eating rice. So I think also oats is a favorite for Leah's for breakfast, but we really wanted to show off grains and say grains don't have to be a side, so we're going to show a meal where grains take the center stage. There's 3 grains in this meal. There's also some legumes for extra protein. We're going to have some chickpeas. But just to show, these are 3 grains that most people, at least most people that I know, don't cook with regularly, but they can be the main course.
And obviously it wouldn't be one of our dishes if it didn't have lots of veggies. So we are including some baby marrows today and our favorites, garlic and ginger and onion, because that is the base of almost every dish that we cook. Yeah. This is a super easy recipe, especially if you do your prep beforehand. So we like to prep our grains in bulk on a Sunday, meal prep for the whole week, and then we freeze our grains. So usually we have some brown rice and some quinoa in the freezer, and if you are having a manic Monday, just quickly defrost that or take it out in the morning and you know it's ready, and you can literally just fry off your veggies, add your grains and your stock pot, and then you are ready to go.
But I think that's a good time for us to tell you, start getting your grains on. We have pre-cooked ours, because at the end we're just going to throw it all together, so it doesn't matter if you're a little bit behind us on the grains, but get the grains going, cook it according to the instructions that on the packaging, but more or less it's usually for grains 3 parts water to 1 part grain, bring it to a boil and then let it simmer until the water disappears or until the texture is right.
So just to show you, our grains are cooked as Don said, and it's going to look so nice when you combine them into the salad. Bring that one as well. And we decided to cook with the red quinoa because it just adds a little bit more color than the white quinoa. But recently we also found black quinoa that is very interesting.
Quinoa is very interesting. We're talking about grains, but quinoa is not actually a grain. It's a pseudo grain. It's a type of seed. Grains come from grasses, and quinoa doesn't. So quinoa is just a pseudo grain. But it's still really healthy, in fact probably healthier than most of the other grains, really high in protein, high in folate, vitamin E, very high, especially compared to some other grains which are really high in these things, but even higher in magnesium, iron and zinc. So it's a really good option. And on the varieties, there are about 3,000 different varieties or strains of quinoa that have been discovered, and most of us only eat people who do eat quinoa only eat a few of them. So if you do see different types of quinoa, I encourage you to give them a try. Not only is it going to be healthier, but from a biodiversity point of view, it is better if we cooking lots or growing lots of different strains of the same grain.
And it's gluten free. So all of our gluten free friends out there can cook along with us tonight as well.
Okay, should we get going?
Yeah, let's get cooking. So are you going to chop the onions?
Can do that.
And then I will chop the baby marrows. For today's recipe, we are going to cube them into small cubes about this size. If you can see.
I can see that.
Okay. I will chop them, I'll cube them and show you exactly how big they need to be. And you can also slice them if you want to. But and then we are using chickpeas with the recipe as well, so it's going to be a super high protein recipe because we do have quinoa and chickpeas, but you can also use lentil. This recipe actually reminds me of a lentil and grain salad that we eat quite often.
Yeah.
It's just not as creamy, but we are going to have more of a spicy version, I guess. I'm just going to chuck some chili flakes in there as well. I guess you can actually add some fresh chili to this recipe. That would be really nice.
Yeah. And then so obviously we should tell you again, if you haven't been watching on our social media, Knorr has a really cool initiative called Future 50 Foods, and they are highlighting some of the foods that they think we should eat more of in the future. Foods that are very, very high in nutrition, but very low in environmental footprint. So we've spoken a little bit about the health benefits of quinoa, but also it's a very good crop for environmental reasons. It tolerates frost very well, it tolerates drought, so you don't need a lot of water. And then also wind doesn't affect it too much. And it uses relatively low levels of fertilizer. I know there's been a lot of talk about sort of the impact that it's had on farmers in South America, and these things happen with sort of all crops, and I think we need to do a lot of more research in that, but we are by buying crops that are grown in areas that are still very sort of rural. A lot of people will say, well, we're raising the price of those grains, so those people can't afford it anymore. But at the same time, you're also empowering those farmers, because the farmers who are farming it are earning more money. So, WWF, who created the Knorr report with the university in America, has looked into these things, and rest assured, you can still eat your quinoa. It's not any worse than buying other grains.
They have some very interesting ingredients in the Future 50 foods, actually. Like pumpkin leaves. I've never really cooked with pumpkin leaves. And also some of the ingredients that people will throw away, like carrot leaves and beetroot leaves. Yeah,
so there's an amazing recipe, a carrot soup recipe, which I'm sure we're going to maybe do next time, or it'll come up on the ProVeg page at some stage. But carrot soup with carrot top pesto. So you make the soup with the carrots, obviously, and then the top, the leafy part of the carrot that most of us would throw away, we turn that into pesto. And so again, less food waste, and it's actually healthy and very tasty. So I'm
really very keen to give that one a try.
Okay, so how's it going?
It's going good on my side. But we're going to fry off our onions first, and we're going to use a little bit of oil. You can also cook with water if you don't want to use oil. We're using a combination of olive and canola oil, but you can also use avocado oil, something that we've started cooking with recently and really, really loving it.
You probably don't have to use oil. We don't usually use oil, but we thought we're following someone else's recipe, so let's respect what they've done. We'll see how it goes.
ProVeg will post the link to the recipe in the IGTV that we'll save.
Yeah.
So don't worry if you're not taking notes, or if you are frantically taking notes, you can just relax and watch us or cook along with us.
But also you can just send us messages and let us know if you are cooking along. I know Katie has already told me that she's cooking along.
And you can, obviously we're making this dish now as dinner for the two of us, but you can also make this into a beautiful big grain salad that you can serve as a side and not as a main meal.
So we're not going to show you the ins and outs of frying onion, but I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the pan and saute the onions for a little while until they're soft.
I've actually used veggie stock to saute my onions in the past as well. So if you don't want to use oil and you think that water is a little bit too boring, then you can use your stock pot, mix it in with your cup of water, and then use a little bit at a time to fry your onions over very low heat. So just to give you a little show, I said earlier that I'll show you how big the cubes are. So I just sliced them into little slices and then quartered them.
But that's also very much a personal preference thing. If you want to have bigger chunky pieces of baby marrow, you can do that. I mean, if you want to make the baby marrow a bit more of a feature, you could use whole baby marrows and sort of bed them on top of the grains and the legumes. Entirely up to you. And then we need some of this. It says 10 ml finely grated ginger, so that's just like a little bit, I think you know. If you want to just show everyone how you do that.
I will show them.
And then I'm going to get some garlic ready here.
Obviously it's always nicer to use fresh garlic, but if you don't have fresh, you can also use preserved garlic. And if you want, you can add other types of veggies as well. Like I can imagine some colourful peppers would be lovely in the salad as well. But just to keep things easy, we are sticking with the baby marrows. So I've got the baby marrows all cut up. Now I'm going to show you how I peel and grate the ginger. A lot of people don't know, but you actually don't peel your ginger using a knife. You use a teaspoon. If you can pass me a teaspoon, that would be great. So a lot of the flavour of the ginger lies just underneath the skin. So you don't want to cut it off with a knife. And also ginger is so small, you don't want to cut it because you might cut half of the ginger away. So instead of cutting with or peeling it with a knife, you're going to use a teaspoon, and you literally you're literally just grating it off like this. And
So I usually use the back of a knife. I find that works easier, but Leo tends to cut herself with knives, so she uses a spoon, the child-friendly.
Actually, I went to an Indian cooking demo, and they also do it like this. And you can see it's like very, very fine, I don't know if you can see, but like very, very fine pieces of skins coming off. So you are actually not wasting any of the ginger itself. And it's super easy and much quicker than using a knife.
Okay, and I'm just chopping up some garlic. Garlic is obviously one of those things that some people love it, some people aren't a big fan. So you can just decide how much garlic you want to put in. The recipe calls for 2 cloves, and that's what I'm going to do, but I've chosen the 2 biggest cloves that I could find in the bulb of garlic. So we're going to have quite a garlicky experience here.
Luckily we both love garlic, so it's not a problem in this flat.
We have a really cool little garlic crusher, garlic press, that would have worked well, but I don't know where it is. We're going to go the old school way.
No, and then you create something else for me to clean. So old school is better. And then I'm just using the fine side of the grater to grate the ginger. And obviously ginger is super healthy as well. It's a great anti-inflammatory. It's great for fighting the flu. And it's super tasty. Okay. So you see the ginger is about 1 flat teaspoon. Oh, the light isn't very great in here, but there we go. And again, if you want more ginger, then feel free to add some more. The fresh herbs that we are using today are flat leaf parsley and coriander. So coriander is my absolute favorite fresh herb, but I know that a lot of people don't like coriander. For a lot of people it tastes like soap. If you're one of those people, I feel sorry for you because it is just absolutely delicious. But you don't have to use coriander, you can just use flat leaf parsley.
And any other herbs would work here, even something like rocket, basil, we might even throw some of our basil in. We've got some basil growing on the windowsill here.
And not that this recipe needs any more protein, but if you did want to add some more protein, or you haven't had enough leafy greens today, you can always add some fresh baby spinach as well, instead of using a lot of herbs. But obviously the baby spinach doesn't have the same flavor than the parsley and the coriander. So while Don is frying off the onions, I am just going to drain some chickpeas. You want to... And I'm reserving the aquafaba, the chickpea brine, because we can always use it to create a healthy mayonnaise at some point. And did you know that you can actually freeze aquafaba as well? So that's a nice little tip if you don't want to use it straight away. Oh, I'm glad I taught you how to peel ginger with the stew. Okay, no, so all of our ingredients are prepped. I'm going to open up our stock pots a lot.
Okay, the onions are nearly done, and we'll show you just before we start adding other items. But I think this is a good time also to tell you about a thing called Rate Your Plate that Knorr has. If you go on the Knorr website, we're going to be sharing those details too. You can go on there, what's usually in your on your diet, and it's sort of just rated if it's healthy or not, and give some suggestions of.
So what I can do in the meantime as well, I can combine the grains and add the chickpeas, right?
Let's not do that yet. Let's get everything cooked and we can throw it all together.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's do that. You're right. She's usually got better ideas.
And I'm time efficient in the kitchen. Okay, so I'm literally just adding all 3 little balls into one big pot. And like I said, you can make this as a side salad as well. So I actually told Don that it would look very, very nice if you have a nice big white platter or a glass platter, and then you mix everything, or your grains and your chickpeas, and then spread that out and then add your veggie toppings to that as well. But tonight this is dinner for 2 and lunch for tomorrow, if Don doesn't eat all of it. So I'm just mixing the 3 grains together. How's the onions going?
Are they going well?
They smell delicious. And have you added the ginger and the garlic?
Okay, so let's show everyone what we're going to do here.
Okay, I'm just going to turn you guys towards Don.
So you can see the onions are softening nicely. I'm going to get a little bit closer in there. And we're adding the baby marrow. Some of them are getting added to the floor by mistake. I'm just going to give that a good cook. So the recipe says for about 4 minutes, but you'll know the baby marrow is going to start getting a little bit soft, and some of the pieces of baby marrow are going to brown a little bit. And then when that happens, we can add the garlic and the ginger.
That's quite interesting. I'm so used to adding the ginger and the garlic first.
So I think we just want to get some, we're going to get a very strong ginger and garlicky flavor out of this meal.
Yeah, and also the baby marrow will cook a little bit longer. So I guess you want to add that to the pan as soon as possible.
Okay, so you want it to be quite a hot pan, but it doesn't have to be quite as hot as this one is at the moment. And just with medium heat, let's save that piece.
This is a super easy recipe to cook for those of you who are participating in the ProVeg Veggie Challenge as well.
Yeah, so if you're participating in the Veggie Challenge, or if you want some more tips and more recipes, you can go and visit www.veggiechallenge.co.za. It's a 3-month challenge to eat more plant-based, so we give you tips and recipes and ideas of how to eat more plant-based every day for 30 days. You'll receive an email from us And obviously you don't read all of them, but they will all include some recipes and tips. And don't have to commit to being 100% plant-based for the period. There's the sort of the fully plant-based vegan option for a month, or the vegetarian, and then sort of what we call the flexitarian challenge, where it's a few meat-free days a week.
So maybe like on a Green Monday.
So for Green Monday, you could you could do the veggie challenge and then pick your favorite recipes from the veggie challenge to cook on your Green Monday. So I'm throwing in the ginger now. Make sure that you don't want to have one piece of ginger. The ginger kind of sticks together, so make sure that's distributed nicely. And the same for the garlic. And we already got this amazing aroma in the kitchen. Let those go.
And like I said earlier, if you do like some spice, then you can also add some fresh chili at this point, or some chili flakes. So Caroline just posted the veggie challenge link in there for the guys that want to take part.
Okay, now we are going to add our hero ingredient, the stock pot. So this is going to give us all the flavor.
Here you go. To show them what it looks like as well.
And again, like Leo said, this is like using a stock cube, except we find that these ones have a bit more flavor in them.
Yeah.
We mix it up, and then we're going to add some water. It's just 125 mils of water.
And just stir it around a bit so that your stock pot dissolves in the water.
Okay, do you want to get chopping that the fresh herbs?
Yes, and bring you back to my side. So I've got my grains ready over here. I've got my chickpeas, and now I will add a nice big handful of coriander. That's been rinsed, and I'm literally just going to roll them up and give them a good chop. Hopefully without cutting my fingers. Like I said earlier, if you don't like coriander, a lot of people don't, then feel free to use any other herbs like basil, or just use parsley, maybe some fresh rosemary as well. So funny, coriander is the one herb that Don and I both love, and it's one herb that doesn't grow well in our balcony, on our balcony. We've got basil, we have parsley, but for some reason the coriander...
If anyone has any coriander tips, please share them with us, because that's not something that we're doing very well. Okay, so Leo got very excited and threw all of the grains together, which is correct, but the recipe calls for sort of a little bit less grains than we cooked, because like she said, we cooked a bigger batch. So what we're going to do is just when we mix it all together, we're going to just sort of feel how much of the grain mix we should have. This would probably be a little bit too much grain mix, but if you follow the recipe, you will have used 200 grams of Bulgar wheat. The recipe says 30 grams of uncooked quinoa, but that's very little, and so it's better to obviously have cooked a batch of each, and then you can decide how much of each one you want to have.
We can freeze the rest.
Yeah.
Like I said, this recipe is so quick and easy, especially if you have pre-cooked your grains, that if we do freeze, let's say half of this, we can whip that up in about 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously it's taking a little bit longer now because we're talking through all of the different steps and just having a nice chat with you guys. But if we weren't talking so much, then this would probably take us about 10 minutes to all put together. Okay.
Should we mix the final guy in here?
Yep. Just mix this up.
Yes, do you want to come and show everyone what this is looking like?
I wish they can smell it. There.
So you can feel, if you just feel softly, you can feel that the baby marrow is cooked, and the stock pot, the sauce has got nice and thick. It's not like a gravy, it's just a light sauce, but it's obviously, when we threw the water in, it was very watery, and you might think when you throw it in, oh wow, this is going to be like soup, but the water evaporates quite quickly and it becomes nice and saucy, so we're ready to mix it in.
It's quite glossy actually, don't you think?
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Very glossy, and it just looks really, really like a nice sort of
stewy. Not stewy actually.
If we weren't cooking this for a demo and we had a bit more time, we would definitely be throwing more veggies in here. So maybe some millies, maybe some broccoli and cauliflower, and yes, the red pepper. And maybe even some fries, chicken salad strips or something. But we don't need that because we've got chickpeas and high protein grains. So.
Also, for those of you that follow Dr. Gregor, you'll know that he also suggests that you eat 3 portions of grain every day and also 3 portions of legumes. So this recipe will tick your grains and your legumes and 2 of your veggies.
Yeah. Okay, should we start mixing together?
Yes. What quantities before I get too excited?
So, like I said, the recipe has its ratios, but we've sort of mixed ours together already. And all we really want is a good mix of grains, and then the beans, and then the veggies that go on top.
So can I scoop some?
So I think we're going to look for about the same amount or just a bit more than we have of chickpeas. We don't want it to be like just a chickpea salad, and we don't want it to be just a grain salad. So try and get about equal amounts of both in there.
Okay.
And then we can obviously see how it goes and add more or less. And we just don't have more chickpeas, so we can't add more, and we don't have more of the stuff in the pan. I don't even know if we need all of those.
I don't think we need all of that actually.
Okay, so it just depends on how much you want to cook and eat now. Anything that we don't put in this now, we'll obviously save for tomorrow. Okay, and then we're adding the cooked baby marrows.
Sure.
I think that's enough. So we have cooked more than enough for 2 people, so we might not use all of it right now. But that is looking really, really good.
And the grains are actually absorbing some of that beautiful glossy liquid.
Okay, and then I'm going to chuck in some of the,
so you can see,
the herbs for you. And just on the herbs again, add a small amount, maybe give it a little taste. If you know how much you want to eat on the herb side, then obviously go crazy. But for a lot of people who aren't used to cooking with fresh herbs, you don't want to make your salad just taste like coriander or just taste like parsley. But we both really like our herbs, so we're going to be very, very generous with that.
And I always say it's great to follow a recipe, but remember that your taste buds are different to the person who created the recipe. My taste buds are different to Donovan's. So always taste your food while you're cooking to see how much flavor you want in it. Maybe you need some more, maybe you want some less, but it is important to taste.
So I'm getting very excited, and I think I want to just put some of this in the bowl because
so
that'll show a bit easier.
Sure, it looks really yum.
And I mean, this is a perfectly fine meal to have as a main, but it also works really, really well as a side. If you're going to a braai, for example, or if you're going somewhere and someone asks you to bring a side salad, this can work perfectly well for that as well. But like we said, there's enough of all of the nutrients you need for a normal dinner in here.
And I think you can have this hot or cold. Obviously, we're going to have it hot now as a nice hot dinner, but I think you can definitely have it cold as well.
So this would work perfectly cold. Just obviously, if you're making it cold, make sure all the ingredients are cold before you mix them. Like right now, this the herbs, for example, are basically getting softer because it's hot. So if you want to have it cold, mix all the ingredients together after they're cold. But there it is, and we're done. I don't know how long that took us, half an hour with a lot of talking. So you can see this is really quick, easy, and delicious recipe. We'll send you a photo as well, and the recipe is online already.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.